Hi again then guys, and welcome to, of course, another look at a specific car from the ranks of GT Sport. And just like with yesterday where we took a look at a race car, once again we are in the racing world, but now we're moving up from Group 4 yesterday to Group 3 today, to a car which I've had so many requests since the game came out, basically, to do tunes and reviews for, so it's taken us a while, but of course there's been plenty of other stuff to look at as well, and it is a pretty popular one, the Mazda Atenza Group 3 car. This is one which, to be honest, I haven't used a huge amount myself. My go-tos have tended to be stuff more like the Ford GT, which we got a couple of months back, that kind of thing. This one though, I never felt an overwhelming need to use it that often, but when I did use it, it's always a good car. Now, in terms of what this Mazda offers, it's strong across the board, as any Group 3 car would need to be, but it's what it can do with the numbers that it has to work with that makes it as good as it is. Because there is a reason why I get so many requests to review a car like this, and generally it's because it's a fan favourite. Now, as far as the specs go, we're not actually told what the engine size is. You can make some assumptions, of course, and it is, after all, a fictional vehicle. As far as power, you're looking at a healthy 567 horsepower, the torque is just under 400 pound-feet, and the weight is 1280 kilos, so it's well under a real-world GT3 car, for instance, and it's got a great healthy amount of power as well, somewhere in a similar region to something like a Nissan GTR, as an example, in terms of power. That's a good combination to have. Of course, it's rear-wheel drive, and it has kind of this V8 supercar meets DTM car sort of vibe to it, which I personally like. And of course, Mazda has a pretty strong showing across the board in Gran Turismo games as far back as, well, I guess in one form or another, technically Gran Turismo 1 and 2 really, but especially from 4 onward, where we got the Mazda Atenza, aka the Mazda 6, touring car, the iconic yellow and blue. And then up in like Gran Turismo 6 you had both of them. I believe one, if I recall, was slightly better than the other. I think it might have been the Atenza. But those were way cheaper than this one is. Those are like 95 grand touring cars, and they were pretty good, but you know, they had their niche and they stuck to it, kind of like the BMW ETCC touring car, which always tended to get overshadowed for obvious reasons by the M3 GTR or the M3 GT2. This one though doesn't have anything to overshadow it as far as Mazda Atenzas go anymore. There is no old school Atenza, it's just this one, the Group 4, and of course the street version. Now, the street version, let's be honest, it's nothing to write home about. It's a perfectly acceptable family car, and it would feel less out of place in something like Gran Turismo 6, where there are more normal cars. In Gran Turismo Sport, though, it just doesn't feel that necessary. It's so slow, but it's also quite big and heavy. But then the ironic thing is that it turns into this amazingly good race car. It's a great Group 4 car, and especially a great Group 3 car, coming from something which doesn't feel all that amazing as a road car, which it's always cool, I think, when that happens. It doesn't happen all that often, because generally the best race cars tend to come from really good road cars, but sometimes you see an occasion like this, and what an occasion it is, because this is a great race car. I would say in Group 3 across the board it's a strong one. It has much more of that touring car vibe, as I mentioned earlier, as V8 supercars and DTM cars do, whereas a lot of the other, in fact you could say most of the other Group 3 cars have more of a GT3-esque vibe. There are a few that don't, and this is one of them. And I would personally say it's all the better for it. It feels fantastic. Now, of course, we did already take a look months and months ago at the road version of this car, which is also very good, very OP, just like all of those cars are. The racing one, though, I would undoubtedly say feels way better. And that's an obvious statement to make, but sometimes a road car actually can seem to be more useful than a race car. For instance, I would say that the Volkswagen Beetle RSI is a more useful car than the Beetle Cup car ever was, because it's more powerful, has better tuning potential, it's all-wheel drive compared to the front-wheel drive of the Cup car, etc, etc. So that can sometimes happen. In the case of this one, I would say that this race car is definitely more useful than the road-going version. The road-going one is good, but it's not a dominating machine. This one, on the other hand, definitely has that potential. And what I like about it as well is, in a similar way to the Jaguar F-Type and the Aston Vantage even that we looked at yesterday, the Mazda has the complete package. But it manages to have the complete package in a way that isn't obvious. It's not like a McLaren or a Ferrari or a Lambo. It's not that expected choice. It's a Mazda. And Mazdas are good, but they don't tend to dominate things. There are certain Mazdas that can, like the 787B or the RX-7, but you don't really think of modern Mazdas as being dominant in any form of motorsport, really, apart from maybe one make racing where it doesn't really count. So this one, I think, has done a really good job. The team at Polyphony, I think, did a good job of making it as well. And of course, with creative freedom, you can pretty much make it whatever kind of car you want it to be. So there's only so much credit you can give Mazda with a car like this, obviously. But it's a great race car overall. I can definitely strongly recommend this one. It's 450 grand, of course, just like all of the others. And you can certainly get a ton of use out of it. It's a great looking car for liveries as well. We've had a number of liveries in the competition based on this car as the basis, as the canvas, if you will. So across the board, it's strong. It's got the looks, the sound, the sheer power straight out of the box. It's not overly heavy, but also it's not this really small, twitchy approach to a race car, but it's also not this big cumbersome one like a GTR can, for instance, sometimes feel. This one is reasonably large, especially with the body kit, but it doesn't feel large. It's light on its feet, it's smooth, it has very controlled handling. Of course you can get the tail out, you could say that about most race cars, but overall it's a good one. I can definitely recommend this Mazda. I can see why so many people enjoy it, and if you haven't checked it out yet, maybe you've won one, but like me, didn't use it much, maybe you didn't use it at all, haven't even tried it, I would urge you to do so. Maybe put a different livery on there so it looks more interesting, but once you have, it's a strong contender, that's for sure. It can definitely bring the heat to any of the other Group 3 cars on any kind of track as well. It's a strong Group 3 race car. So overall, that's it for this particular pick. Of course, I will see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.